Hey guys, welcome into Vav Live. As always, my name is Vincent Allen, founder and managing director of Vav Industries, and your host for Vav Live. Behind me, we're in the studio again this week. Behind me, you'll see the smart board with our website rotating on there. So if you see anything behind you that piques your interest and you wanna hit that up, go to va-av.com, and you'll be able to see everything that's there. But this week, what I wanted to talk about was, I read this article in Fortune earlier this week where they were interviewing Apple CEO Tim Cook, or he was at least part of the article. And one of the things, and what they're talking about is this remote working culture, right? And we started off our program earlier this year talking about remote work and how everything is more possible. And we've got the studio built and cameras and lights and, all this fun stuff, right? But now Apple's CEO Tim Cook is basically saying, after he said we're doing this remote experiment, and then he said everyone's got to come back in 3 days a week, and then now he's basically saying if people won't come back in, a minimum of 3 days a week, then they're basically fired. Like, come in or lose your job, right? And to that, I say, Tim, do better, right? Honestly, Tim, War Eagle and all of that, but come on, man, you run a tech company, right? And you see all this technology I'm sitting in front of here. Today, more than ever, we're able to allow people to work remotely, work flexibly, work on their schedule, but also just work from home. Like the article goes on to talk about how it might not be that easy. People have been working from home for going on 3 years, depending on exactly when they went remote. And if you're a working parent like I am, then you might not be able to ramp up childcare just like that. It's going to take some time. And basically forcing everyone back into the office is unacceptable. So let's talk about what's really going on here, right? I've worked for a number of outfits in corporate finance. I've worked with a number of large real estate groups, nationally. And what I can tell you is going on is that companies like Apple or other big companies have large real estate agreements diversified all over the world. And these large real estate entities, and I'm not talking about your landlord where you rent your apartment from, but I'm talking about people like Empire State Realty Group, and there's other companies. That's one that's local here in New York that just popped into my mind. But there's tons and tons and tons of these large real estate groups that have very snarky leases that mandate a minimum amount of occupancy and all kinds of other things. And these large companies are getting pressured into forcing people back into the office when they know and we know that it's actually more effective and cheaper for people to actually work from home. The run rate costs are less, the ramp up costs are less, all of it's less. And we've proven over the last 3 years that we're something like 200% more efficient while working from home than we are while working in the office. Here's what I know. I've seen many comments on social media, LinkedIn especially, where people are saying, well, how do I know that my employees are working 100% of the time? And to that, I say, I can guarantee you that they're not working 100% of the time, because they're not working 100% of the time when they're in the office. Let's do some simple math. Your workday starts at, say, 9 o'clock, right? Employee A's getting up, showering, getting themselves together, putting a face of makeup on, shaving, do whatever you got to do, put a suit on, get ready to get out the door. Well, what if they have kids? So now that multiplies. Now you got to get Junior off to the school. Naomi goes to school remotely, but when she went to school in person, that was about an hour door to door just to get to the school. 5, 10, maybe 15 minutes, hugs, kisses, saying goodbye, and then 30 minutes headed back in the other direction and get to work. So you're at almost 2 hours of zero productivity. Because I can tell you one thing, if I got to drag my carcass out of the house and take my kid to school and then haul cookies to get to the office, I can promise you I'm not looking at Slack or Outlook or Teams or any of the other things that you might have deployed internally to allow me to work on my feet until I walk through the front door of the office. So it's 2 hours gone. If I was working from home, when I get up to use the bathroom in the morning, guess what I'm doing? In my phone going, oh, I wonder who hit me on Slack, right? Lost productivity right there. Now I get into the office. I got to get through security. Maybe that's 5 minutes. Maybe it's 15. How packed is the elevator? More lost, another quarter of an hour lost. I get in through the front door. Guess what I'm doing? Setting down my bag, making a beeline for the coffee stand. Right. So then that's another 20 minutes lost because there's going to be a line and there's going to be people there standing there. We're all going to be chatting. Hey, Susie, how's the husband? How are the kids? Oh, hey, Jim, did you see the game last night? Crazy, right? And all of those kind of things. Another half hour of productivity lost right there. Now we're at like 4 hours of lost productivity nearly, right? And the day hasn't even started yet. I'm going to go to my desk. I'm going to press the power button on my machine, right? And I'm going to wait for it to boot up, and then I'm going to log in. Maybe that's 5 minutes. Maybe it's 20 minutes. When was the last time we did an IT refresh? How good is your IT staff? How long does it take to get signed into the network, right? Then I'm going to drink my coffee. But guess what happens when you're drinking your coffee? Bathroom break. Coffee's great for that. So then I get up, I go to the bathroom, and then on the way back, I grab a banana, I grab a cookie, whatever. Another 20, 30 minutes lost. Then I get back to work. It's almost lunchtime at this point. So now I take my lunch. I've got 2 15s I'm entitled to. Very little is actually done. So now you call a meeting. Everyone shuffles to the conference room. Now the conference room might only be a 2-minute walk down the hallway, but it's going to take me 15 minutes to get there because I'm going to stop and talk to people. I'm going to go get a cup of coffee for the meeting or tea or whatever my weapon of choice is. And then we're going to have this meeting. And most people are not going to be engaged in the meeting. Guess what they're doing? They're on Twitter. They're on Facebook. They're on, realistically, they're on Indeed, right? They're on LinkedIn Jobs. They're in all of these places. They're on ZipRecruiter looking for a boss who won't force them to come to the office every flipping day or 3 days a week or whatever. As a global community, we have demonstrated that we are capable of running businesses, running the government, running house of worship, running the entertainment industry, running the sports industry from our kitchen table. So why penalize us for doing all of that work? Like the reality is when someone's in the office, you are getting little more than 4.25 hours worth of actual productivity out of them. More to that point is that study after study after study has shown that human beings are only productive for about 40 to 50 minutes at a time, after which they need a break, right? And these studies have been out there for decades. That's why back in the 90s, you started seeing all of these companies bringing over a lot of these ideas chiefly from Japan. Thank you, Japanese people, by the way, for that. That's where you started seeing pool tables and gyms and sleep pods and video game systems and God only knows what else in break rooms or whatever, so people could go chill out, go shoot some hoops, go take a swim, go do whatever it is that strokes your fancy so that you can let your brain decompress for a while, and then you can get back to work. Study after study has shown this. And point of fact, the United States is really the only country that treats its employees this way from a labor law perspective, right? So what does all that mean, right? How do we put a nice, neat little bow on this? Well, in short, we've got to stop driving our people into the ground, right? During the pandemic, Vav and myself and our staff were in higher demand than I think I've ever been in nearly 30 years of working in the production and technology industry. Why is that? Obviously, everyone needed work from home apparatus. Everyone needed Slack or Zoom or Microsoft Teams or similar, right? And everyone was trying to build in some level of apparatus to do town hall and high-level production remotely. Well, guess what? Now all of these companies have built out this infrastructure, and now that we've done all of that work, they're going to take the keys and say, turn it off, and say, you know what? We're not interested anymore. Get your butt back into the office. I've had a lot of conversations with good friends of mine who are in the recruiting industry, and recruiters get more static than they probably deserve. But this is what most of them are saying, is that employers are utilizing the quiet quitting, move and a lot of these other things to offboard people and then rehire at a third or 50% of the rate or like whatever. And that certainly is happening. But here's what I also know. There are more people on places like Upwork and gig economy sites and, freelancing sites than ever. And so companies, Apple, I'm speaking to you, but Elon Musk, I'm also looking directly at you, and Jamie Dimon, you too, right? Jamie, you love to walk into a meeting, and I know this, Jamie, because I've worked for you. I've run productions for you. You love to walk into a big meeting, no tie, throwing curse words around like they're going out of style because you like that brash attitude. Elon, you love to pretend like you're this genius and you have all of the answers. Tim, like all you guys, all you're doing is forcing people out the door. Because I know as a parent, if you force me to choose between spending an extra hour a day with my daughter or going into your office, that's not a hard choice, right? That's really not a hard choice. So let's talk solutions. So how do we solve for a growing crisis of working parents not either not wanting to or not having the ability to be in the office every day because of childcare issues, right? How do we solve for that? It's real simple. There's two things we do right away. You give everyone access to a hybrid schedule, and you also give them access to flexible hours. So if my kid is in school from this time to this time, I can work opposite that. Then you give me 2.5 days a week at home. It's real simple. It's much easier to find 2 days of coverage than it is to find 5 days of coverage, right? It's just that simple. The other thing we do is we open up the workplace to be much more friendly for kids, right? Now there are some lines of business you can, obviously if you're a cop, you can't bring your kid to work, right? Obviously if you're work for the DEA or work at a prison, right? That's not super possible. But if you work in an office, there is no reason why like a lot of these big, when I worked at Pfizer, right? They had a whole child care facility. There's no reason why we can't take a couple of conference rooms that are going to go unused and convert them into places for, co-learning and, more remote learning modalities. We're going to get to that in another episode about the future of education and whether or not it's in person or remote. I happen to think it's remote, to be honest with you. I happen to think Naomi has been on remote learning for 3 years now, and she's thrived. Now, she doesn't necessarily always like it, but because she wants to get outside and play with her friends and stuff like that. But from an academic perspective, she's crushing it, right? And that's not just because I'm her dad and I'm bragging on her. Speaking of which, I want to take a brief ad break and pause. And can we just brag on Naomi for a little bit? She's 8 years old, and she was on the ones and twos last week, live switching, and she did not make one mistake. So as a proud dad, I just want to brag on her for a minute and just remind you that the future with young people like her is coming, and these virtual events, virtual meetings, virtual school, that is all coming, and she is the proof of that, right? So getting back to the subject at hand, how do we convince these companies to allow us the freedom and autonomy that we've all earned over the last couple of years, right? Well, the first thing we got to do is put our foot down. If Apple's going to fire all these people, they're looking to fire them anyway. This is just a pretext. You see all the layoffs that are happening. So what do we do? When you work from home, get your KPIs up. Demonstrate. If you don't know what that means, KPI equals key performance indicator. So what are the metrics that you're being judged on at work, right? But also, there's a significant, amount of money to be made in the gig economy. So you can, like you said, go to Upwork. I mean, there are bunches of places you can go, Fiverr, like all kinds of places where you can set up a little business and make an income. And when the Tim Cooks and Elon Musks and Jamie Dimons of the world say that, oh, we can't work remotely, you go, watch me. You go, bet me. And you go ahead and do it. And you make your money and you get your freedom back and what have you. Unfortunately, it seems like the only way these companies are going to learn is by walking out. Because the reality is 90% of all of the work we do in the modern West is knowledge based, right? I can I can operate a video switcher from anywhere in the world, with a handful of, with a very small amount of engineering. Now, if that's something you're interested in, please reach out to me in the comments, and I can definitely talk you through how to do that, and what needs to be done to set up a fully virtualized and remote solution. But maybe that's an offline conversation. We will begin doing some demonstrations on how to set that up and how to set up a studio and how to do that all in the coming weeks and months. But for now, let's just talk about that for a minute. You can, whether it's Zoom, whether it's Teams, going a little further back, BlueJeans, WebEx, it's all a handful of things that you can do to get people in the same room. You can set up touchscreens like the one I've got behind me, right? Look, it moves. I can scroll it. Right? You can set all that up. You can do virtual conferences. You can do virtual summits. You can do virtual meetings, and you can have the same or similar engagement with the technology that's coming over the next 6 to 12 months. The whole world's going to change, and we're going to be able to do this much better. So this week, I wanted to, instead of being, informative and training and being an activist in the way that we've been over the first iteration of this, I wanted to take the opportunity to put a video out there and basically say to Tim Cook and the Elon Musks of the world, with full Floyd Mayweather energy, step your game up, because this is not okay. It's not okay how hard people have working through nights, through weekends, never taking breaks during the pandemic, to then basically be told, get back to the office or you're fired. That's not an acceptable turn of events, considering what we've all been through over the last 3 years. Obviously, people got to work, right? Obviously, work has to get done, but that should be on a one-to-one basis, not hundreds or thousands of people that are being forced back into an office that they haven't been to in 3 years and maybe have never been. The numbers are staggering. The amount of people who were onboarded during the pandemic and have never met their coworkers in person, or have only maybe met them once or twice, right? And so you expect people to get back into an office that they've never been to in the first place. All you're doing is setting yourself up for failure. People will walk, but also you're setting yourself up for a 3-month excursion on people not being productive, because they're trying to get used to the office and getting used to a commute. And we haven't even begun to discuss the additional financial burden of having to get in a car and drive somewhere every day to and from, or get on the subway to and from, what it costs to just the pragmatic apparatus of going to the office. Am I cooking lunch and bringing it? Am I buying lunch? Where am I getting my coffee? What is appropriate work attire now? All of these do I have to do dry cleaning? Am I expected to be in a suit every day? These are all things that cost money, and either you need to be prepared to pay your people more for the privilege of having them in the office, or you need to be prepared to let them stay at home and work from home, or you need to be prepared to lose people, because talent goes, historically, you look in the tech industry, the best talent goes where they're treated the best. Richard Branson, CEO of Virgin Everything, has said over and over again over the years that the customers aren't who I'm worried about. If I invest in my people, they'll take care of my customers and the business will thrive. Well, right now what we've got is a lot of mega corporations who are refusing to acknowledge the yeoman's work that a lot of people have done over the last handful of years and treating them like cattle, right? And that's not acceptable. It's just not. And at VAV Industries, we're not here for that. We're always going to come to you with thought leadership, provocative topics, how we can do this better or do that better. But this was something that I saw this week. It was a front of mind for me. And we really need to do this better, right? Because I shouldn't have to worry about how I'm going to balance this and going to balance that if 80% of my job is tap, 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 tap on the keyboard or joining a Zoom call. What do I need to be in an office for that for? Anyway, thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Rant over. I'll put the soapbox away. Keep it locked in here. In the coming weeks, we're going to be We're going to be doing some more interviews, talking to some people, in the film industry and other places. We're going to be doing some product demonstrations. I'm going to take you through the studio over the next couple of weeks, as we start to get, some of that more built out. We just got into the studio. We're really excited about the opportunities there. If you would like a tour of the studio, please hit me up. We can set that up. At any rate, this has been Vincent for Vav Live. Be well, guys. Have a good one.